Steel Curtain Network.
¡Por Jorgito! ¡Goes down! Najee Harris! DJ Watt!
What is up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome to another episode of the Steelers Preview. I'm Jeff Hartman, and joining me, just Dave Schofield today. Brian Davis is out in Colorado. I think he's interviewing Coach Prime or something like that. No, he's not doing that. He's probably with the Boy Scouts or something. But anyways, Dave is here. What's up, Dave? How's it going?
Oh, it's going great, Jeff. You know what? I'm kind of bummed Brian's not here for this. I got to fill in for Brian and do the kind of things he was. I'm going to pull a little even Gwen Stefani at you. Let me blow your mind. All right. Do you realize that tomorrow night, Friday Night Lights for Steelers, that is the midway point of training camp? Tomorrow is the midway point of the number of practices for training camp. That'll be practice 8 of 16.
Wow, that's awesome. Time flies when you're having fun, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are right in the thick of things. Let's talk about training camp. Let's start with, we'll touch on the news as we talk about the topic of discussion here, and that is, what have we learned after 1 week of camp? So today, Thursday, wrapped up day 7. So it's been officially like a week. Yes, practices. They did the run conditioning test, sled pushing on Wednesday when they reported, but Thursday was the first practice. So after a week, what have you learned, Dave? Because some people might say I haven't learned much. I think that I disagree, but what have you learned?
Well, I've learned that I don't know nearly as much as I think that I do. I want to clear the air with a couple things. I thought that the Steelers couldn't practice 3 days in a row in pads. It's that they can't practice more than 3 days in a row. They could have practiced in pads today, but they didn't. I'm pretty sure to save it for Friday Night Lights.
Right.
That's one. Also, if you listened to Monday's Let's Ride, where you and I did our 53-man roster, yeah, I was completely convinced that the Steelers weren't going to bring back Marcus Golden because he's not, I don't think he should be higher than Nick Herbig on the depth chart. And he, at least last year, didn't offer anything on special teams, which you kind of need from a fourth outside linebacker. But yet today the Steelers made the move, but that's because they definitely lost one due to injury of David Prowlis, because he was waived injured, which means he'll probably, unless someone else claims him or there's an injury settlement, he could end up on IR depending on what's going on. There's a lot of things still to be seen what's going to happen there. But then also, was it Kyron, however you say it, Johnson?
Yeah.
He left practice yesterday. Didn't hear anything about him today. I don't know if he was back or not. So the line was a little short, so they made the signing. So that's me throwing the news in to answer the question. But
well, let me ask you a question about Marcus Golden. And you bring up the outside linebacker 4, which we assume that he would be behind Nick Herbig. Do you expect an outside linebacker 3 to play special teams?
See, that's a really good question. It depends on how you're diverting your assets on game day. Remember, last year they played. There was a game that they had. Why am I thinking it's the Colts? I might be wrong there, but that's just the one that stands out in my mind. That they had Marcus Golden inactive.
Yeah, they
had Kyron Johnson and as the number 4, and Herbig is the number 3. And then both TJ and Alex got nicked up a little bit in that game. It might not have been the Colts. I can't remember which one it is.
Yeah. Well,
but I don't see how. I mean, honestly, yeah, I kind of expect the third one to play some special teams. That was kind of a big deal last year that he didn't.
So I guess my thought is that if Marcus Golden's not going to provide a lot of upside on special teams, which he might, they might just say, look, man, if you're going to come in, we're going to need you on teams. This isn't just going to be a come in and rush the passer and try to stop the run on occasion. So that might be a caveat to his contract, but I think Nick Herbig is guaranteed to be on special teams. So we'll see how that plays out. But there were a lot of people when this news broke this morning, not necessarily within our staff, but more so on social media, that thought, oh my gosh, what does this mean for Nick Herbig? I don't think it means anything. I think Nick Herbig is fine. I think that if Marcus Golden if he makes the roster. It's no guarantee that he makes the 53-man roster. You could name a bunch of players last year that were signed. Everyone's like, oh, this guy's going to be this, that, and the other, and they don't even make the team. So that could still be Marcus Golden, but I think it's with Jeremiah Moon. That's the battle. Who's going to provide more upside? Who's going to be more reliable? Bringing in Marcus Golden, I love how Mike Tomlin described him after practice. He said that Marcus Golden is, quote, I wrote it down, low to no maintenance, end quote. So he is not a guy that's going to require a lot of attention. He's going to go out and do his job. And so, hey, you bring him in. I guarantee it was a cheap deal. I don't know if it's veteran minimum, but it was.
He was last year, I'm pretty sure.
Was he? Okay.
I mean, I think I'd have to double check, but yeah.
All right.
Because it was that, I'm pretty sure it was that 1 year veteran salary benefit thing.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong, but I'll check on that while we're going here.
I'm going to go a different direction in terms of what we've learned after 1 week of camp. I'm going to say that the rookie offensive linemen, two in particular, they're a little old school, and I freaking love it. Is what it is. They are old school, and I'm talking about the we'll call it the scuffle on Wednesday. And so for those of you that don't pay attention to Dave's tracker on SteelCurtainNetwork.com,
shame on
you. You're not paying attention to a lot of headlines written about that practice on Wednesday. Let me paint the picture for you. So Justin Fields scrambles to the right side, sliding. Landon Roberts gives him what Landon Roberts called was a quote unquote love tap. And who came to Justin Fields' defense? Mason McCormick and Troy Fautanu. And they said, no, you're not doing this to our guy. We're not putting up with this. And I said, dang, like that's a statement. You are 1 week into camp, and this would be like in high school, a freshman coming in, and during tryouts or whatever the workouts are, someone goes up and just starts shoving seniors. You just don't do that in most instances. These guys are built different, man. They're old school. You protect your guys. And Mike Tomlin can say all he wants about that's not how we want to go about doing our business. In the back of his brain, he's thinking, yeah, you stick up for your guys. I like that. And I'm sure that there was some props being given. Even the defenders, TJ Watt himself after practice said, man, I like seeing that. I like guys that are going to stick up for their guys. After the David DeCastro, Marquise Pouncey era, after they kind of left, was when I felt like some of that edge left as well. So I learned that about those two rookies. I was glad to see it.
Yeah, and I think for all you know, maybe someone like E-Rob's out there pulling one of those love taps because he knew it was mostly a rookie offensive line in there at the time. And maybe it was to say, oh, maybe I can get away with this now and no one's going to, or is one of the rooks going to jump up and get in my face about it? And guess what? They did. So to me, I have no problem with it all around. Talked about it a little bit on Pittsburgh Standard Time this morning with Greg Benevent. And because it's also the whole idea of, honestly, who's probably the most at fault for everything? Probably Justin Fields. Probably doing things to the defense, trying to show that might not be trying to, that could be showing them up when they're not allowed to hit him, even when it's full pads. So, but at the same time, he's out there trying to make a play. So I don't fault him either.
Someone on Twitter said that, I don't remember this. I'm going to cite them. I don't know who it was, but they said that last year, Landon Roberts did this to one of the quarterbacks for the Steelers, and no one did anything. And so he was interviewed after. He said, I'm not going to do that again. Not after that. So he's basically testing the defense or the offense, see like, okay, how much can I get away with? Well, there's the line. You went to the line, and these rookies are like, yeah, that's too far. You got too close to the line, Mr. Roberts. So I learned that about those two rookies. Dave, what else have you learned after 1 week?
Well, I'm going to bring up a comment from good old John Edborg because I gotta throw this out there because I've been calling this. He says,
"You're right, Dave.
I'll give you a 53-man possibility if he can play special teams. They've been using him. Yeah. It's going to be real interesting to see how this plays out in preseason games. But the Steelers, they are lining up at times in the I formation, and they've been using Jack Coletta, who I think is more of the typical fullback, not the hybrid, can do all kinds of crazy things fullback like Connor Hayward. And Is it enough to get him on the team? It might be.
You know, I laughed when you said that on our 53-man roster prediction on Monday's Let's Ride. And well, I'll be damned if I'm not checking your article at the end of every day or around midday when practice is over and I'm going through and, 7 shots. Najee Harris behind Jack Coletto. Jack Coletto with this. Jack Coletto. I'm like, well, dang it. Dave is going to probably get this thing right. So, if he can provide some special team splash and proves value outside of fullback, he might have a chance at making this team. I don't know what they do with tight ends in terms of who they keep, who they don't. That'll be interesting, but I'll give you credit. He's putting his best foot forward. I'll be anxious to see what he does in the preseason and how they use him, because he could be a guy that shows out.
Don't keep him if you're not going to use a fullback. Actually use a fullback more than 3 or 4 plays a game.
Yeah. Well, yeah, don't turn him into Derek Watt.
Yeah,
you're going to keep him.
That was the problem. You brought in Derek Watt, you paid Derek Watt, then the offensive coordinator's like, we'll put him out there occasionally. We'll put him out there as a wing just to get him on the field like we're using him since we're paying him. But no, don't do that.
Well, I'm going to go in a different direction here, but I want to get your thoughts on something. So we haven't learned anything about Russell Wilson because Russell Wilson has yet to play anything other than 7-on-7 as he continues to rehab his calf injury from pushing a sled in a conditioning test, which I'm not, as a fitness guy, I'm not even going to talk about that, how stupid that is, and so many different levels. But we have learned something about Justin Fields.
They're allowed to do conditioning on that first day, part of which is a test. It doesn't mean that the sled itself was a test. It could have just been part of the conditioning overall there, because the NFL doesn't say anything conditioning test.
Right, yeah.
Their stipulations for training camp is that first day you can do conditioning. Right. So how much of it was just regular conditioning versus how much of it was a conditioning test? Either way, dude, I'm always doing the sled. Come on, everybody on the sled. That was me, but that's high school versus professionals.
Yeah, so for the sled thing, how often were you asking your aging 36-year-old quarterback to push said sled?
Say that one more time.
How many times were you asking your aging quarterback that's supposed to be your starter to push a freaking sled? Could you imagine Ben Roethlisberger at the end of his career saying, he would have looked at this coach, I don't care if he's new or not, and said, hey, Coach T, like, what are we doing here? Why am I doing this? I'm throwing footballs. What's going on?
Here's what we don't know. Maybe you can find this out from the source. Did they make him do the sled, or is that one of those things where I'm the new guy? This is my first time in training camp. Yes, I'm the veteran. I'm going to show these guys I'm in here. I'm jumping in on the sled with these guys.
That's true.
I've seen that plenty of times in my coaching, like I said, at the high school level, that, hey, I'm not, one of those people that are really, they're all about the football. They're like, hey, just because I'm a quarterback, just because I'm a receiver, just because I'm not too good to get in there with everybody else and push the sled like these guys have to do it.
Yeah, I see that. There are some conspiracy theories out there. I talked about this on Let's Ride. I love a good conspiracy theory, by the way. And they think that the Steelers are slow rolling this whole thing to see what they have at Justin Fields, which is my question for you, Dave. Okay. What have we learned about Justin Fields after a week? Now, this is a guy that we always heard these narratives and these perceptions. In this offseason, I interviewed people that cover the Bears, and they gave their takes, and we've heard it on social media. But now he's in black and gold, and we've seen bits and pieces and reports. Dave, what's your take on Justin Fields?
I need my sound bites from Scobro Show. I need they are who we thought they were. In other words, he is who we think he is. He shows some amazing, great things and shows a crazy amount of potential but just because he's actually doing it a number of times. But then there's other times where it's just, still needs to work on that. That's what I'm expecting from Justin Fields. And I think that's what we've seen. And I think it's also shown that if he's a guy you have to call on during the season, and think about it, odds are not every quarterback plays all 17 games. You're lucky if you get a quarter of the league that gets their starters playing all 17 games, then you're going to have to call on him during the season. And I feel that he's someone that's capable of doing that.
Yeah, anyone with two eyes in their skull, it didn't take them long to see that you weren't going to win a lot of games with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback. Do
No.
you think that you could win a decent amount of games with Justin Fields after even just a small sample size like this?
Yes. But here's the but.
The big but.
The big but. You made me lose my train of thought. I'm sorry.
Did you forget?
Big butt talk. No, I remember. I'm trying to actually articulate what I was going to say.
Yeah.
There's also that potential that you could be in that moment, and he makes the one play that you couldn't afford to give up.
Yeah.
If he's got to play 4 games, I could see him coming in and leading you to victory in 2. Having one where he's just all right, and whether you win or whether you lose, but it's really not on him. And one that he just kind of blows it for you. That it could play out that way. So there's the
crash
potential.
and burn plays. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, but I mean, so then it all comes down to that one other game that he doesn't do much. Do they pull it out or do they not? Because, missing 4 starts with your starter, 3-1 is pretty good. 2-2 is, it depends on what stretch of the season is with the Steelers with their schedule. But anyway.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I'm excited. I lean on people that know more about football than I ever will. And Coach Kevin Smith is one of those people. And he was at camp on Thursday today, and he's going to write up a report, and it should run on the website, steelcurtainnetwork.com tomorrow, Friday. And so I believe this will probably run around anywhere between 10 and 11 a.m. Pittsburgh Standard Time. And go check it out, steelcurtainnetwork.com. And he is going to talk about Justin Fields, and he's going to talk about how he's just a dynamic freak. Like, you watch him and he looks like a linebacker, and he's athletic as all get out, but he does still have some processing issues in terms of running the plays the way they're designed from the pocket. So we'll see. I'm curious to see what he says. But Dave, have you learned? What?
He might have been the perfect quarterback for Matt Canada, because you weren't allowed to process. You just had to do what he said.
Well, there's been people that said that there are people that said Arthur Smith's offense is best when a quarterback plants his back foot and delivers an accurate pass. Go back to when Ryan Tannehill had his best season of his career in Tennessee. He would drop back, plant his back foot, and there were times he would throw the 10-yard into a tight end, and you're like, don't throw it. He would thread the needle because he was super accurate. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Yeah. But what else have you learned from camp? Anything?
Oh, let me see. Well, I am going to say something about Russell Wilson, because there was something that was brought up today by those in attendance, and that is, they're not having Russell Wilson do a lot, but when he is doing stuff, he is spot on.
Sharp.
That what you're getting from him is exactly what you would want. So to me, you're not getting everything that you would want to see, but at least what you are getting, it's at a very high level. Think about that. It's the whole notion of what the Steelers should do with Cam Hayward this year. If you're cutting down the amount of snaps that he plays, then you want to see higher quality from those snaps because there's less of them. Same kind of deal with practice here with Russell Wilson. If you're not having him do everything, then what you do see from him, you want it to be really good. And that's apparently what you're getting from him.
I think that right now, everyone's so fixated on Justin Fields because Russell Wilson is just watching. The majority of his day is spent watching and mental repetitions. And you're right. Every report I've read
coaching up
from
teammates.
Training camp. What's that?
And coaching up teammates.
Yeah. And so everything you've heard is that he is sharp. Like he's on point. I'm excited to see him get back on the practice field. And so we'll see what that looks like coming soon. I guess for me, I also learned that I think the Steelers might have something with Dante Jackson in this Deontay Johnson trade. I'm not even talking about what they gave up or any videos that I've seen of Deontay Johnson dropping passes in Carolina. He's not in black and gold anymore. I don't care. But I will say that Dante Jackson he's been tested against the Steelers' best, George Pickens, and he has stood tall on more than one occasion.
Well,
and so I would
as tall as you can for being 5'9".
but still, I mean, for a smaller guy, he's a veteran presence.
I'm sorry, I just had to throw that in there.
I'm 5'9". Shut up, Dave. So, anyways, Dante Jackson is not getting a lot of publicity, but I think he should be given some, a tip of the cap, and maybe he's the veteran presence across from Joey Porter Jr. that they've been wanting. And I don't care if it's him, Corey Trice, Darius Rush, whatever the case is. It's good to see that trade return is turning out into, at least early, small sample size, a good one.
Well, I'm going to look at it this way. I like what the Steelers got in Dante Jackson, what we've seen so far. Of course, as we get more samples in from preseason games and as the season goes on, that could obviously change. We know how that goes. Someone you think is a complete bust, next thing you know, at the end of the season, you're like, the Steelers can't live without him, or vice versa. So right where it stands right now, I like what they have from him at the cornerback position where they needed another player. When it comes to that trade specifically, the question that I have is, if the Steelers wouldn't have made that trade, would they have gone out and got another cornerback? I believe they would have. Would it have worked out as well? Who knows? Could have been better, could have been worse, could have been the same. But by making the trade, then they leave the void at wide receiver, and they didn't really fill it. So that's still ultimately the thing. I like Dante Jackson, the player. I like that they added a cornerback. But instead of keeping Deontay Johnson and adding a cornerback, they traded Deontay Johnson for a cornerback, but then they didn't really do much to fill that void. That's the biggest thing, and it's going to stand out a little bit more now with Roman Wilson being temporarily out, kind of taking him out of the equation. But Van Jefferson is giving what some people who talk about the Steelers, I know Roy Countryman loves Van Jefferson before he even put on a Steelers uniform at training camp. And I think he's doing a nice job for the Steelers, better than what some expected. But it's still not what they would have had otherwise. So sometimes I just have to remove myself from the idea of that trade and just look at Dante Jackson for who he is. And I like what he's doing. I just don't know if the increase in play they're getting at corner is going to outweigh the decrease in what they're getting at wide receiver.
Absolutely. And we have a lot more topics to discuss here, the things that we've learned after 1 week of training camp. We're going to get into those again right after this break. If you're watching live on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, don't go anywhere. We're not going anywhere. But from the audio side, we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. All right, Steeler fans, we are back, and we are still talking about what we've learned after 1 week of camp. Dave, I'm going to throw it to you. What else have you learned so far?
Well, once again, I have to correct myself because I want to make sure we're getting the right information out there. It's Beanie Bishop who's 5'9". Dante Jackson is 5'10".
Well, if I'm wearing shoes, if I'm wearing shoes, I am 5'10". So we'll call it even.
Yeah. Okay. I hope you don't mind. I'm being very specific about things.
Well, yeah, I don't care.
Okay. There's one specific play that I wanted to talk about because part of it, I was like, yes, yes, yes. And then part of it, it's no, 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 because it's Steelers on Steelers.
Right.
And that was in the 2-minute drill today. I'm pretty sure it was the 2-minute drill. Both units scored. Yay, offense. Come on, defense, but they're not wearing pads.
Right.
But the first unit that scored, do you remember who it was?
Is George Pickens, who was being covered by Patrick Queen.
So, yes. So this is the thing that I love. Arthur Smith, fantastic job dialing up a formation and everything that got your best receiver on a linebacker.
Yeah.
Who knows? I want to see that all season. Steelers defense. Why is a linebacker, even though Patrick Queen's good in coverage, but why is a linebacker covering the best receiver on the other team? So for every win, there's a loss because you're going against your own team. That, to me, that's the prime example of what we're starting to get into now with Steelers fans, now that we're a week into practices. that's going to be like, man, I can't wait to get to the preseason games, because you're tired of seeing the offense lose at the expense of the defense and the defense lose at the expense of the offense.
Yeah, no, that was it. Mike Tomlin was asked specifically about that play, and he said, sometimes that's football. And I'm sure that in terms of defensive strategy, they might be still ironing out the kinks of, okay, if they go into a bunch set, which I know it was Pickens, Freiermuth, and I think Calvin Austin, the third, might have been the other wide receiver.
I saw the video, but I didn't. I was trying to pay attention to where Pickens was more than anything.
Right.
Because it was a bunch formation. So you can kind of assume who's going to take who and run your receivers that way. Otherwise, you're going to get the defenders knocking each other over. People
because you can't do man in that situation. You have to say, okay, Patrick Queen, you've got the inside. And if George Pickens is doing the inside route, well, you got to cover George Pickens.
Yeah.
But no, I totally agree. It's a double-edged sword. Yay, offense, and gosh darn it, defense. What the hell?
Yeah.
They gave up 2-minute scores in practice on Thursday. Kyle Allen I wrote it down here. It was Jere Jenkins. That's a household name. Jere Jenkins. Everyone knows Jere. But
isn't that who you guessed last week? Is who wasn't? No, it was the other one. He was one of the names in the game I did last week. In the very first question, he was one of them.
Yeah. I'll tell you something else I learned that I was really happy to learn was that Arthur Smith has realized that the guy that we call Mount Washington,
thank you,
actually has
my next thing.
That he actually has these things that are connected to his wrists, and they're called hands, and they're actually used for things other than blocking, that he can actually catch footballs with them. And it's just been nice to see red zone. They're doing a red zone drill or 7 shots. Darnell Washington was just targeted. I'm thinking, thank you. They're finally letting this guy be a two-way player. We've known he could be a two-way player since they drafted him in 2023. I was super excited, even if it's just 1 week of training camp, to see that they're at least using Darnell Washington in some receiving capacity.
Yeah, that was going to be my next one too. Because if you want to include 7-on-7 or any 11-on-11 or any, 7 shots, all of those situations were 7 practices in, I would bet, probably not a lot, because when I bet, I don't bet a lot. I would bet that Darnell Washington has now been targeted more times this year in training camp than he was during games last year, because he only had 10 targets last year.
Easily.
Yeah.
I think that's easily. So
thank you. Utilize him. Good.
Yeah, seriously. No, I'm with you 100%. With you 100%. What else, Dave? Anything else?
All right, now I got to think what I was going to do, because that was the one that I had in my back pocket. What we've learned. I mean, do you want to talk a little bit of Beanie Bishop?
Sure, let's go Beanie Bishop.
You learned that the Steelers probably, they must feel at least somewhat comfortable with him, especially. I know you mentioned a little bit with what potentially could have been the deal with Josiah Scott and his release, that they're rolling with, that they're giving Beanie Bishop every opportunity to grab that role that's not going to put him on the field all the time, but it's going to give him a really good bit of playing time if he can grab it. And so far, he's stepped up. Even times going up against George Pickens, because one of those things I mentioned once again on Pittsburgh Standard Time this morning was, are the Steelers cornerbacks looking good because they're going against the Steelers wide receivers who aren't, or are the wide receivers looking good? Are you strength on strength, or are you the weakest link on weakest link? So yet another reason why I can't wait for the Steelers to take the field against somebody else.
The funny thing about Beanie Bishop is that there's a lot of people that get stuck on him being an undrafted rookie. I get it. I totally get it. But then at the same time, I always know there are certain players that have an edge. Screw you guys for not drafting me. I'm going to show you I'm capable. And the first name that comes to mind when I try and think of who a good comp is for that, it's Mike Hilton. And Mike Hilton was undrafted, and he bounced around. I think he was with Jacksonville, New England before he landed with Pittsburgh, and then he got a big contract with Cincinnati. But he was a guy that a lot of people said he's undersized. He can't do it all. And no, he's not the best in coverage, but he sure is good at everything else in terms of stopping the run, playing the run, blitzing. So you can find those diamonds in the rough. And Dave, correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a while since the Steelers have had one of those at any position.
Nah,
Like,
you're
when
wrong.
you think about am I wrong?
Oh, yeah.
Who?
Number 30.
Jalen Warren. That's a good one. Okay. Who else? Who else? Who else though?
No, he's the gold standard. He is. He's the gold standard.
See,
Recently. If it wasn't for
yes.
him, I would agree with you.
Yeah, because for me, I look at like,
I mean, yeah, you're talking like they're saying Debo. Yeah. But when was that?
Early 2000s.
That was almost 20 years ago. Or 20 years ago. I'm trying to remember.
My
exactly.
gold standard is either Mike Hilton or Alejandro Villanueva.
Yes.
Or you could say Ramon Foster.
Yes.
That guy was a decade plus starter at guard who was undrafted out of Tennessee.
So that's what you have to remember about the draft. Sometimes it's not whether you're drafted or not, or the round you're drafted in. It's the Steelers being smart to get you, not having to take you sooner than what they would have to get you otherwise. Love the story. I'm pretty sure it's from Jim Wexler's book, On the Clock, talking about the 74 draft, the infamous 74 draft. Chuck Noll wanted Stallworth 1. Yeah. And they said, no, wait. He's like, okay, I'll take him too. No, wait. Then he finally got taken. He's like, okay, now, then he wanted Webster. No, wait, my goodness. Look how long they waited for Donnie Shell. They're like, we're not going to have to draft him. We can get him otherwise. Beanie Bishop might have been that guy that they even thought, I hate to say this, they might have thought more of him than Ryan Watts, but thought, hey, Watts is someone we'll have to draft to get. We'll be able to get Bishop as an undrafted free agent, probably because of his height, and we'll grab him there. It might have been one of those times where they were willing to roll the dice and it paid off.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. I just know that the Kevin Colbert era seemed to be riddled with those diamonds in the rough. And I'm just hoping that Omar Khan and his crew in terms of scouts and development team can find them as well. If it's Beanie Bishop, let's do it. Beanie babies galore. Everyone bring your beanie babies and throw them on the freaking field if he makes a play. Interception, beanie babies on the field. Let's go.
Might as well if they're not worth anything.
Yeah, seriously. At one time, that was mint. But anyways, I have one
the tags off. They won't be worth anything.
Exactly. I have one more thing that I learned before we go into our trivia segment. I was fascinated to hear, and this is the first time that the Steelers that practice on Thursday had done live kicking for the new kickoff rules. And so I'm curious, okay, so what are they doing? How are they handling this? And it's clear that hang time means nothing. It doesn't matter. You can't move until the returner touches the football. So Matthew Wright and Chris Boswell both did not have the football north and south on the tee. It was actually east or west. If you're talking about the points of the ball, the laces, etc., they were side to side, east and west, and they were kicking these knuckleballs that were landing in the landing zone, but were probably really difficult to field for the returner. Now, if the ball goes into the end zone after landing in the landing zone, they can kneel it. They would get the ball, I think, at their 30-yard line. It can't go out of the end zone. That's no good. Can't go out of bounds, but maybe they're trying to get a muff play, but it's a fumble. I don't know. Dave, you're our kicking connoisseur here at Steel Curtain Network. What do you think about this approach? I mean, I don't know what's going to happen tonight in the Hall of Fame game and how they're going to handle things, but that was interesting to me.
Yeah, and that's funny because Coach Danny Smith said after practice that he thinks this will be the most watched Hall of Fame game because people are going to tune in. I'm going to watch the very beginning.
Yeah,
I want to see that first kickoff. I really do, because even hearing about what the Steelers were doing at practice, I was still trying to visualize it. It's really tough to do. So to know exactly what the goal is, how it's going to work with the ball, even trying to see how that's going to play out. Anything that makes, well, first of all, it's still a live ball. Correct. When it goes into that zone. You can go get it. If they can't field it, go get it. But the other thing is anything that makes them have to hesitate, take some time to actually secure the ball, just gives you more time to cover. to get there to cover. So that's going to be really interesting. This is the first that we've heard about them working on it. But at the same time, we also heard after practice, they were getting instruction from one of the head officials in the NFL was actually almost like giving them a seminar about it. They might have specifically waited for this. There's also the report today about Mike Tomlin working with the Madden
EA
people.
Sports,
yeah, to with the video game to try to figure these kind of things out. It really is going to be. It's going to be a huge difference, and I know some people are complaining about, oh, there's no more surprise onside kick. Well, how many times did you get a surprise onside kick? I know the Steelers did it in the Super Bowl in, I guess it was the 95 season in 96.
Super Bowl 30.
Yeah. And you had one that was what, the Saints and
Colts. Yep.
Super Bowl. They did that to start the second half.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about those couple of times. But how often would you even get them during a regular game? How many times would you get that during the season? So you don't want to change a play and make it more exciting because you could have a surprise onside kick 3 times during the year. No, that they're trying to bring something back to the play. So this play is really important because every single play has the potential to be that one play that makes or breaks you in a game.
Yeah.
It'll
be interesting.
You like to quote Joe, it was Joe Gibbs, right? That
Correct.
said, a football game generally comes down to 4 or 5 plays. This could be one of them. You've either got to execute it or not. So to me, the Steelers, is it more about the Steelers making that be one of those plays that puts them over the top? It could be, but to me, it's more about making sure that's not one of the plays that really hurts you.
That's true. It's a great way to put it. All right, before we go to trivia, I want to give a quick reminder to everyone that's listening to this, not only about steelcurtainnetwork.com. We hope that website is a part of your daily rotation of checking out websites with good quality content, steelcurtainnetwork.com. But if you're watching this live on YouTube, if you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel, like the video. It all does help. Trust me, it does. If you're listening to this on Facebook or on Twitter and X and you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, do so. Go to youtube.com, search Steel Curtain Network. You'll find us. Subscribe. We're close to 12,000 subscribers. I would love to get there before the regular season. We're about 250 shy. Maybe actually 150 shy. 150 shy last night.
Jeff, you've got to make sure you say this because so people hear the word subscribe and you got to get a subscription.
It's free.
That means pay. This is not anything that you pay for. You just hit, subscribe or follow or whatever the button is there. That's what you're doing. It costs you nothing. And there it is.
And likewise, if you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and you don't know about our audio-only feeds, please go check those out as well. Dave mentioned his Pittsburgh Standard Time podcast that ran this morning with Greg Benevent. My Monday, Wednesday, Friday Let's Ride podcast. Brian Davis's Bad Language and the Here We Go Steelers show. All these shows are only on audio, so make sure I do put some of them.
Insider. Yeah,
that's right, with Jim Ware. So I do put some of my Let's Ride clips on our YouTube channel to give you all a little bit of a taste of what I'm doing. But you got to check out the full shows on our audio only. So check those out. All right, David, you have trivia. I'm an idiot. This ought to be fun.
No, well, I think this trivia, I'm kind of glad it worked out this way because I think this trivia might have been a little bit too easy for Brian because I think you can handle this, Jeff, because
this is kindergarten
I'm talking about all-time Steeler greats is what we're going to be talking about. Because what did we get last weekend? We got 4 new players that are going, or not players, 4 new people, I should say.
That's right.
That are going into the Hall of Honor. We're talking about the Steelers Hall of Honor. And it's only been around since 2017. So it's not like you have to remember, some of them are players that played a long time ago, but it's not like they got inducted a long time ago. So this should be in your wheelhouse here, Jeff. I'm hoping. Now, who were the 4 people that were just inducted? They'll be inducted during the ceremony in December.
It was Jason Gilden, Casey Hampton, FWP, Fast Willie Parker, and the man Dick LeBeau. Of those 4 players, we're going to look at first names. Okay.
One of those 4 players joins someone else that's already in the Hall of Honor that has the same first name. You know which one of those four is?
I'm gonna say Willie Parker.
That there's another one. Now, because here's the thing. That's
I
what
don't
you
think
think.
Willie's
Maybe
his first
Parker?
name.
Willie is his first name. He's not. That's
Oh.
not from everything that I've researched. That's not short for William.
Oh, okay.
So it's Willie. So there's not another Willie.
All right.
You're close. If you think about it, it's not another Willie. I think I just gave it away.
I wasn't paying attention to what you're saying. I was thinking. So what? So you gave it away? I missed the answer.
For the fact that I'm laughing.
Well,
Not a Willie.
It's not Willie.
Not a Willie.
I don't know.
Come on, Jeff. If you used to teach middle, you need to have a middle school mind right now.
I have a middle school mind all the time. I didn't really hear the jokes. He says not a Willie.
It's not Willie.
It's not Dick LeBeau's not in there. There's another Dick LeBeau.
There's another Dick. Okay.
Oh, Shiner
in there. No, it's not Dick. Good guess, but it's Dick Hoke.
Dick Hoke. Okay.
Both as a running back and as a running backs coach. Now, so that's one of 8 first names that they have multiple players in there. I'm not going to ask you to name all 8, but can you think of any other names of first where people share the same first name, even if it's spelled different but still pronounced the same? I gave you the thing. What do you think the most common first names are of players? So you're thinking of all-time Steelers greats and their first names.
I know. Oh my gosh.
Like, I'll give you another example.
Mike? Is Mike one?
Okay. Mike. There are 2 Mikes. You are right. And those 2
Mike
Mikes are
Mike Webster and Mike Wagner.
That is correct. Very good. You got the Mikes.
Is James another one?
James is another one that has multiple. Those would be
James Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
And James. I'm just thinking about
played with James Harrison.
Is Farrier in?
Farrier is in, yes.
Okay, good. He
was put in 2020.
Okay. Is there another one?
Yep. Well, there's several.
Oh,
I'll give you one because you probably won't think of it because this is kind of cheating. Art.
You mean the Chief?
Because it's both the Chief and Junior are both in there.
Are there more than 2 Jameses though, or is it just 2 Jameses?
It was just 2 Jameses. There's actually 2 names that have 3 and 1 name that has 4.
Jack?
There are 3 Jacks.
So you have Jack Lambert, Jack Ham.
Mm-hmm. And the other one was before them.
Yeah, I don't
played in the 50s. That was Jack Butler.
Okay.
Sorry, there's only one LB. Okay, that's an easy one. Some of these are pretty easy.
There's only one Jerome. Only one Jerome.
There's one name that there's 3, but only one of them was a player. One was a coach, and one was a scout / player personnel person.
Oh, shoot. It's not Chuck, is it? Charles?
No, not Chuck. It's a little bit more your era.
Bill?
Yes. Bill.
Bill Nunn and Bill Cowher.
Bill Nunn, Bill Cowher, and the player Bill Dudley.
Got it. Bullet Bill
I'm
Dudley.
really surprised you haven't got the one that has 4. But it's tricky because it's not necessarily the names you would think of. It's a very common name, but it's not necessarily the Steelers players you would think of.
See, I'm sure I'm going to kick myself when you say it, but
are you ready?
Is it John?
Yeah, you are correct. I was going to say, I actually mentioned one of the players earlier in the show. John
Stallworth.
John Stallworth. There's 4 Johns. 4. John Stallworth.
I'm looking at the live chat for help.
Oh, that's fine. I'd be shocked if you could get the rest of these. Okay. It's John Stallworth, John Henry Johnson, John McNally, and John Kolb.
Yeah. Kolb is the only one that would come close to.
Yes, I thought maybe, but that's the one that's not spelled the same.
Yeah.
And so you got all the repeats except for one. There's another one that there's two of them, but I didn't expect you to get that. It's actually my oldest son's middle name. It's also the name of a Ghostbuster.
Nope.
Yeah, it's Ray.
Ray Mansfield.
Ray Mansfield and Ray Matthews.
Okay.
So I just was trying to have a little fun with helping you remember the Hall of Honor players. But you did really good on that, Jeff. You did really good.
Thanks. Do you know what movie the character Ray Kinsella is from?
Yes, that's from Field of Dreams.
Very good. There's my trivia. All right, so I'm done with my trivia. All right, so this has been a good show. Like it's no Brian. I don't think Brian's going to be back next week either. I think he's still out and about doing his thing, so it'll probably just be Dave and myself once again. But that's okay. We'll hold down the fort, getting you previewing the actual preseason game on Friday. Dave, this is the last weekend that we won't have something Steelers related, except for the week before the regular season and the bye week. That's pretty crazy.
Yep.
Anyways, all right.
And the week before the regular season, that's a holiday weekend anyway.
Is that Labor Day?
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm pretty sure it should be.
Yeah.
It usually is. I don't know where Labor Day falls this year. I haven't looked.
It's actually like September. It's the end of August, like the September 1st or 2nd. It's really early this year.
Oh, then it might not be the holiday weekend. I don't know. I should look at my calendar. Who cares?
Yeah.
We'll get Steelers football next weekend. That's all that matters.
That's right.
We are 8 days away, Jeff.
What's your final thoughts?
My final thought is we are 8 days away. Yeah. Something that I didn't realize until today is that the Steelers' first preseason opponent is playing tonight. It'll be their second preseason game when the Steelers face the Texans next week. I didn't even pay one bit of attention to who was playing tonight for the Hall of Fame game.
Texans Bears. Bears.
So I can't believe that I'm almost halfway done these trackers, Jeff, because we really are halfway through when the Steelers break camp, because though their last practice is going to be Wednesday. Was it Wednesday the 14th? And then because then Thursday the 15th is the joint practice, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And then they play on that Saturday against Buffalo. And my goodness, it's here. We're hearing about the Steelers doing things on the field. And hopefully, maybe for some of you, you haven't been around during the offseason. You're just coming back.
That's
Welcome back. We might have to say that again here in a few weeks as we hit preseason games and regular season games. But it's all right, because here goes the Steelers. And there's lots of questions to still be answered. But you know what? We'll get there in time. So you got to enjoy every stage as you get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we'll have you covered every which way and sideways at the Steel Curtain Network. And I'm excited for next week to preview an actual game. So make sure you're on the lookout for that. But Dave, why don't you send us out like you always do?
Hey.
We'll see you next week on another Steelers preview. Take it easy, everyone.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.